The current security situation in the Gulf is really complex. So the US-Israeli strikes against Iran started about a week ago. They seem to be going on relentlessly. There have been retaliations from the Iranians, both against the attackers, but also against third countries, GCC countries in the Gulf, and some attacks on shipping. So if you are a shipping operator, a ship captain in that region, it's going to be very complicated what's going on and understanding if you can move, whether you should stay, and whether it's even economically viable to do your job.
2% inside have.
President Trump has suggested at various times different ways of making sure that that trade, and particularly oil and gas energy supplies, flow through the Gulf. And one of the ways he suggested is escorting or convoying shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. That, of course, depends on the level of threat that's still faced, and that threat is we call it being written down, being destroyed all the time. So we heard very recently that the Americans had sunk maybe around 16 vessels that are capable of mine laying in the Strait of Hormuz.
The United States is offering political risk insurance to any tankers operating in the Gulf, so we're putting up risk insurance. We'll perhaps go alongside of them for protection. We don't think it'll be necessary if it is. And if they do anything, the price will be incalculable.
I think when most people think of escorting shipping or convoy operations, they have a very specific picture in mind, and that's probably one of long lines of ships, oil tankers with a warship at the front and a warship at the back, steaming along and firing missiles to protect the flow of trade. That certainly was the case in the Second World War, may even have been the case in the 1980s in the Iran-Iraq tanker war. The world is a little different now, and we have different capabilities. So I think a more appropriate word than convoy is escort or protection duties, and that's more of a layered defense. So I think we can expect to see satellite and airborne surveillance that could be bolstered by crewed and uncrewed patrol aircraft or surface vessels that paint a picture. That picture needs to be shared with all of the interested stakeholders, including shipping companies, so they know what's going on in and around the Gulf.
Detail and a spotlight on the front as well. Task group within the Arabian Gulf itself, and we are calling that CTG.
Good launch, she's climbing.
In the past, we've had examples let's go back to the 1980s and the Iran-Iraq tanker war. At that stage, some of the vessels sailing in and out of the Gulf were reflagged to other countries, including Kuwait, to give legal protection, and then warships would escort them through the most vulnerable areas. More recently, in the days of in the early 2000s and 2010s, in the days of Somali piracy, there was quite a dangerous area going through the Gulf of Aden along the southern edge of the Arabian Peninsula and towards the Red Sea. And there was surveillance, there were warships, and there were onboard protection teams that would help the ships in that area. And I guess even more recently, we can look at the situation in the Bab el-Mandeb and the southern Red Sea from 2023 onwards, where the Houthis in Yemen have attacked merchant shipping going through that narrow choke point as well. And there we've seen drones flying, both in terms of protection, but in terms of attacking shipping. We've seen warships painting a picture and shooting back, but we've also seen surveillance, satellite surveillance, and long-range strikes into the launch areas for attacks. You have instances when ships that are going from point A to point B have to go through a bottleneck, a choke point, a narrow channel. And the most obvious ones of those may be places like the English Channel. But of course, there is a route around. It may take longer, but there is an alternative route. The most obvious one and most economically important one of all is the Strait of Hormuz. And there is nowhere around. You have to go through. And that strait is about 20 miles wide at its narrowest point. And on one side is Iran. On the other side is Oman and the Emirates. And shipping has to go through there if it's going to get to its destination. In the specific case of Iran, the country has never really had a strong blue water, ocean going naval capability that we would think of in terms of our own navies in the West, in the United States or the UK or France. What it's done is concentrated on local defensive mechanisms and what we call anti-access and area denial techniques. So that would be things to, well, basically to close the Strait of Hormuz, to make it difficult for shipping to pass. And they've done that through a variety of means. So there are coastal gun batteries, there are coastal missiles that could target shipping. They have an air force that would be capable of hitting ships as well. They've had lots of small boats. They have a technique of swarming small vessels to overwhelm the picture painted in the operations rooms of Western warships, and of course they have drone and mining capabilities. From a European perspective, of course, Europe has economic interests there and regional interests and friendships and coalitions and alliances. So I think the UK and France have a long history of presence in the region, probably have been drawn down in recent years, but a long history of presence there and could play a part. And so could many other Western European nations as well. They certainly have the capabilities to do that. I think the question, though, is should they, or is it better that a local regional force is used to protect their own interests? So the United Arab Emirates, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar all have a stake in this. Of course, it's their oil, their lifeline that is under threat and needs to be protected, and they have some very capable naval and air forces as well, and they could play a part. The shipping companies, the oil production companies, these are private enterprises, and they do business in order to make money. And to do that, to move commodities around the world, those commodities and the ships that carry them need to be insured. And like every other walk of life, the insurers will look at the risks and and make determinations. And if that means that if the risk is so high that it means that the insurance premium is so extremely high that it doesn't make economic sense to continue trading in that way, then those companies won't trade. So I think it's beholden on all of those stakeholders, both state actors, shipping companies, oil and gas companies, to work together, share information, share best practice, and do what they can. Again, working hand in glove with the insurers to make sure that the markets respond to what's happening.